Or just,
Who's having trouble? Somebody's having trouble.
let's see, what's we want to have?
Is Virginia not going to be here? Does anyone know?
I
I
haven't
haven't
heard.
heard.
I've
Joan
not
would,
heard from her.
I didn't hear from anybody.
Joan would know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
I
right.
don't-
So we
Well, we're only on audio. Oh, here we are.
Oh.
Gallery.
need some video. We need some video from Charlie and Joe and
I'm good.
Susan,
I'm doing screen share.
Peter.
Yeah, I'm here, but I'm worried about who's bringing the donuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good.
Well, you all look well. That's a good thing.
I'm
Happy to
basically
do this.
calling in on my phone, so you don't have to put up with my mug.
Oh, you look fine. Now that the screen share's up, Joe, I can't tell who's missing.
The only person who's missing, I think, is Virginia.
And Joan, is Joan in?
And all here?
Angus is here.
Joel is here.
Angus is here.
Good.
Can you do
Noel-
gallery view, Joe, before you do the split?
I have Noel, Joan, Angus, Peter, Charlie, Leslie, Susan, everyone but Virginia. Is Joan not on?
Is Suzanne there, our recording clerk? Is she there, Suzanne?
I'm here.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I guess since everybody except Virginia's here, we can start the meeting at 9:32. Oh, that's lovely. Thank
That's
you.
your
If we all do-
flag.
All
I'll do
right.
the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to
Allegiance
Flag
to the
the
flag
flag
is
of the
United
United States of America,
of America
And
and to the republic
Republic
for which is
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty.
with
Liberty.
liberty and
justice.
justice for all. Thank you. Oh, look at that. Joe, you are so efficient. You're gonna have to teach me how to put up all these slides on Zoom. I'm not good at this yet. There we are. That's our new weighted votes. How cool is that? Okay.
Thank you.
So Susan, we have a quorum. You've
Yes,
said
we
so.
do.
All right. Moving along then to your secretary's report. Acceptance of meeting minutes.
We have 3 sets of minutes. One from February 21st. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read those, but could I have a motion
So
So
moved.
moved.
and a second?
Second.
Any changes or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes of the 21st of February are approved. Meeting minutes of February 28th. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second from Peter. Any discussion?
I have a question about the minutes, and Suzanne, perhaps you can answer. I know we had discussed not putting into minutes anything that's just commentary, but I do recall at this particular meeting there being a discussion about microtransit funds being supplied by DOT, and unless I'm not reading carefully, I don't see any language about that from Mr. Solinsky. Does anyone remember that other than me?
No, I remember that. That was a key discussion point.
Okay, you want to ask?
Yes, please. I would like some language that reflects that he did promise that funding. And I'll get into that later in the meeting.
Ensure microtransit funding
Yes.
Extra mile,
for the extra mile.
right,
Okay. Got it.
okay.
Okay.
So with that change, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. And finally, the minutes of March 13th, a special meeting. Motion to approve.
So moved.
So move.
Second. Second for Charlie. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, these the meeting minutes of March 13th are approved.
Thank you.
And acceptance of finance committee minutes. Is that for the meeting we just had?
Yes, we sent the agenda out Monday when we didn't know when the finance committee would be, so
Okay.
So what do you do, table those?
we'll have to table that, yep.
Yeah. Who's typing, Suzanne?
Yes, I am.
All right, so whoever's typing, maybe when you're not speaking, put your phone on mute, please.
Okay.
Okay, so, Suzanne,
Yes.
anything else from you for your report?
For me? No.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Executive Director's Report, Joe?
Okay, so I just sent that out.
Okay, just see the CARES Act. So that's kind of been one of the biggest things that happened since our last meeting.
No, we can't understand you.
Somebody's got interference going.
Can you hear me better
Try
now?
again, Joe?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
Okay. So since our last meeting, the biggest thing to happen has been the CARES Act. That was the over $2 trillion bill from Congress to respond to the coronavirus. And in that bill, there was $25 billion for public transit, $490 million for Connecticut. So it's a significant amount of money. It's a 100% federal funding. And what was surprising about it is that any expense that normally is eligible for federal funding is eligible for this. It does not have to be related to the coronavirus at all. And in addition, operating is eligible. So you get 100% operating funds with this money too, which normally would not be allowable in 5407. So they've tried to make it really flexible. They've even have said that they're easing purchasing rules with this money. They haven't said what that is yet, but they've just told us that they're doing that. So right now, we are waiting on a split agreement with Connecticut, DOT, and other transit districts. So that's something we go through every year, where we decide how we're going to split up the money that Connecticut gets from the feds. This year's a little different though, because normally, Connecticut DOT has a really big role in that because they decide what they're going to match. This year, there's no match. So we're in a stronger position than normal. So once we get the split agreements all signed, then we will be able to go in and apply for our grant from FTA. And that, once that's all submitted, it usually takes us a few days to get that in. Then award will happen within 45 days. And part of, again, this act, it clearly said that we have pre-award authority up to January 20th of 2020, which means that anything we've already spent, we could start obligating the money now. We could start anything that was spent as late as January 20th is eligible to be funded with this money, whether that be operating or if we want to go let out a contract now, we can do that and it would all be eligible to be funded under this CARES
Joe,
Act.
is this going to be first come, first serve, or is it going to be a more orderly process?
Nope, it's going to work just like our normal process where we have to all sign a split agreement. Like so Connecticut, it was all allocated using the 307 formula. So it's based on population, density, ridership, a lot of, there's a lot of factors that go into the formula. And so each metropolitan region received an apportionment, which totaled to 480 million in urban and 10 million in rural for Connecticut. And so what we then do is on the urban side, that 480 million, we all have to agree on a split. So we get split letters. Like for us here, we are in New Haven, Hartford, and London urban areas. So I will get 3 split agreements to sign. If we don't sign those, the money can't flow. So every one of us have to agree to split. So that's kind of how it works. What's one thing they did too this time was most of the items will not have to be in the STIP, which is State Transportation Improvement Plan, which is where the COG is usually involved. So, the MPO. So this time, unless it's something that's gonna, it's basically major stuff. Like if you're gonna expand a building, build a building, that has to be in the STIP. If you're gonna use it for operating funds, if you're gonna use it to buy buses or stuff like that, it does not have to be in the STIP. That's very unusual. So, because usually the MPO, is part of that local process too, making sure there's local input, but they will not, for the most part, they'll be not involved in this process. But we still have this split agreement.
Joe, just a question about that. Is there any benefit for us bringing this to the MPO for endorsement anyway? We have a meeting coming up next Wednesday.
I don't think we'll have well, they're not gonna, my guess is they're not gonna even plan STIP amendments for it. So I don't think we're gonna know what it looks like by then. What we might want to have on there is something kind of like we're able to do from our state association, telling the state they need to be working with the transit district, especially since the MPOs are cut out of this.
Excuse me, Joe, let me interrupt for a second. If you're not speaking, just put your phone on mute. Somebody's got a whole lot of fun stuff going on there that's very disruptive. Thank you. Go ahead.
And, yeah, I have you, Joe, on the agenda for the COG meeting under transit district updates. So I just, if you can attend, it's at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. Hopefully you can give a little briefing to the CEOs.
Yes, I will be there.
Great.
So and then once we go through all that, then it's going to be just like our other federal grants where the money's going to be. So once we've done the split, we've done the application, it's then our money. And again, another unique thing about this money is it has no lapsing periods. And normally funds lapse after 7 years. This funding is endless. In theory, I mean, of course, Congress could change that in the future, but they specifically put no lapsing date on these funds. So, you could spend them over a long period of time if you so choose. But once we've applied for it, then they're ours. So no one can take them. They're in our grant, and they're for us to use.
Okay, and moving along to your triennial findings.
All right, so all of our findings are closed, and we'll except for cameras, and we've ordered some cameras for the exterior. I'm going slow, and miss something? There they are. And our small buses came in. We got 3 of them delivered. See them there. There are the first of this Ford Transit style body. They're smaller. Bought them for dollar ride. They're just 8 passengers. Of course, they came in like the day or the day after DMV closed. So,
sorry.
So I have been working with DOT. They're trying to find me contacts at DMV to get them registered. And just a quick update on some capital projects. Our AVL continues to improve, and we have been telling people to use the app. Right now with everything so crazy, the best way for people to know what's going on is to use the app, and the app is we'll keep up to date. We have the ability to push out announcements to the app to tell people what's happening, and they've been good about when we did change service on Route 641. They had it all changed in the app and on our website before we were starting it. So it was always correct for the public. And our automatic passenger counters, that's the APCs, are working. That what you see there is actually a heat map of where people are riding the bus. We mostly use the bus, so you can see where people get on and off. And this is the past 30 days, so it's everything's very skewed right now because of ridership dropping so much. But you can see it's mostly people are going from Old Saybrook to Madison as the biggest spot, and then Clinton's got a good bit of use there. The radio delivery has been impacted by all the coronavirus. So they're looking at a May delivery date, and we should see them installed late May. And our IVR system, which is interactive voice response, still is not communicating properly with Ecolane, our scheduling software. It looks like Ecolane's figured out the issue, that it's on their end and they're working on it. But so what we did was, because again, a lot of people are uncertain every day whether we're running or not. It's just like having snow every, I get a lot of are you running calls? And we had a lot of no-shows, especially at the beginning. We got our IVR working so that we're manually making go out every night. We're manually pushing out calls to remind people that they have a trip tomorrow. And Leslie got one of those test calls the other day.
Yeah, that was fun. That was it worked well.
Yeah. So at least they're able to remind people that they do have a trip tomorrow. It's not giving all the details like it will once it's fully functioning, but again, it's at least providing that reminder. And I do see, I looked yesterday, and it looks like every day we're getting some cancellations right at that time that they're pushing out. So people are being reminded to cancel.
All right, any other questions for Joe? I think we have to accept your report, don't we, Suzanne?
We do.
Yeah, all right. Motion to accept the executive director's report?
So move.
Second? I know I put you all on mute, but you can come back now. I assume there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
They've all gone away. Unmute yourself, people. All in favor?
How do you mute yourself? Because I had to redial back in.
No.
Can you hear me? This is Noel.
Yes, we can
You
hear you.
hear me?
Noel. Yep.
Joe, maybe this is going to come up later, and if so, we can save this. But Joe, in your report, are we going to have some discussion about how the lack of the diminished ridership because of COVID-19, what financial impact that's had? Is that a part of your report, or we're going to discuss this later?
It's its own item.
Yes, later.
Okay, thank you.
New business item.
Okay, any other questions about the executive director's report? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Good, thank you very much, Joe. Moving along to finance manager's report, Helena.
Budget was actual, when you look at the screen there, like I was telling finance committee, we have no issue in our core services. The only problem we have still is the extra mile, the $79,000. And other than that, we should be okay with the budget. So so there, you guys, can you have any questions? I know we went through with the finance committee. I just wanna. Hello? Is there any questions?
No.
Okay. So I will be quick with the budget, with the cash flow. Joe? Okay. Cash flow, we have no problem. Okay, to the June at this point. So there's no concerns. Is there any question?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
You all done?
I
Yeah.
would say, Leslie, I would say that we're planning on discussing the loss of revenue at some point further
Late.
in the meeting.
Yes, yes.
New business.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor of accepting the finance manager's report?
Aye.
Aye.
Actually, I'm sorry. Who made the motion? Charlie and Peter. Okay. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, fine. Thank you, Helena.
Thank you.
Okay, operation manager's report. Where's Margaret this morning?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Margaret.
I've got my computer and my phone going at the same time, but I'm also answering dispatch phone, so bear with me. Hi, everyone. So good to see everyone safe and sound at home.
Say that again, please.
It's very nice to see everyone safe and sound at home.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a report for us, dear?
Joe, you gonna move it for me?
Ryan.
Yep.
Out,
Let's see if they can hear you.
no, it's not seeing you. That's weird. Oh, here we go.
Leslie, can you hear me? This is Peter.
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I've been
Howdy,
absent for 10 minutes.
Oh, well, that's okay. We don't need a personal rundown there.
Mistake. I mean, mute by mistake somehow.
So
Everyone,
in reviewing the ridership, I have updated the numbers because when we were looking at it with all this free time we have in our hands now, I noticed that the percentages were off because they were looking at the wrong year. So I've updated everything going forward. As you can see, everything is down because of course ridership has been lower than usual, but as of this moment, things are steady. They're just not where we want them to be, but they are definitely steady. Can I have the next screen?
Margaret?
Yes, sir.
Margaret,
I'm here.
yes, the report you sent out on the Google Drive to download the ridership report required printing 16 pages. Could you please format it in a version where we only have to print out or look at 2 pages?
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely
Thank
do
you.
that.
All right. Lesson learned.
Thank you. Joe, next screen. So I will send a revised copy that only gives you 2 pages instead of 16 pages.
Good,
Okay.
thank you.
you get your other report up?
Thank you, Joe.
Seeing it yet?
That-
No, not yet.
Over time. Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're working on the customer service report. I didn't get a chance to get with Helena to finalize this, but I know as of January, February, the concerns are very low. Our customers are very satisfied with the fact that they can reach out to me directly if there's a concern that needs to be addressed. I find that we're getting more compliments as far as they're very grateful for the service. They're grateful that we're doing the amount of cleaning that we're doing on these buses, and they are satisfied with the response they're getting from our drivers as far as information. The drivers are providing them with a lot of information, like the new apps that they can download so they can see where the buses are, the new apps for Extra Mile where they can actually book their own trips or they can book future trips. And also, you know, with the new IVRs, I've actually even got a call this morning that people are getting those calls and they are grateful that they get the call reminder in the evening and also when the driver is getting there. So, I mean, there are some things that we're still working out for the IVR because I know the one concern I received was they're getting more than one call. But like Joe says, it's something that we're working on right now, but it is going forward. Next report.
Oh, I have a question.
Of course.
Was it already explained? And if you could just speak a little slower for me, I hate to ask that.
No, not a problem. I never remember how fast I'm going until somebody says that, so I will.
Did you explain the unsafe and rude behavior statistics there?
Well, what we get, these categories are a little off because what unsafe and rude behavior means for one person may be something for the other. I tried to put it based on the main concern of the rider. So when you look at unsafe behavior, it can be a matter of, oh, the driver didn't stop right where I was standing. They moved up a little bit, so I had to walk over to the bus. Or rude behavior could be, oh, she didn't say good morning to me, and I said hi to her, but she didn't respond. So things like that. Like I said, it's small things, but it's very important to our customers that they receive 100% customer service and customer-friendly service.
And you deal with the appropriate drivers, correct?
Yes, I do. We have conversations as far as verbal communication, and I just write up what we spoke about and what the expectations are for that particular concern.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with perception, but
It really does.
It's good that you follow up with the drivers and let them know what the comments are. That's good.
That is correct. And if there's a video, I actually review the video with them so they can see live what the interaction was, so they can understand why that perception was made.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second, everyone.
I'll go through extra mile.
Thank you. I'm just picking up phone calls.
Yeah. So the last one was extra mile. We have February and March here. And February continued to be very strong. We had days where we had our biggest day was 65 trips in a day. And that's again with one bus. So that's really impressive. And that's a lot for a demand response type of service. That's actually like the 4.5 trips an hour range, which is really high.
That was the 11th?
Yes. And in March started strong, and then you could die down. It kind of drop off. But you'll see more kind of how it's been since then when we talk more about the coronavirus directly related stuff. So if you look at the first half of March, it kind of shows it was still fairly strong, starting to drop a little, and then by the end it really dropped off. But as just in the next one, it's actually been probably our strongest service of anything right now. So. And of course we had been exploring fare options for extra mile. There was one of the ones we liked, one of the payment processors they use. Gotten their agreement, had it reviewed by our attorney. They had made all the changes needed, and then all this happened. But one of the things we liked about them was that in addition to being able to process this, they'll be able to do phone-based payment for our entire system. So people will be able to buy like a monthly pass on their phone and use it on the bus, on any bus. They can buy a 10 ride pass. They can do it all right on their phone and not have to come in, go anywhere to buy a ticket anymore. Margaret's still on the phone, but I think that was the end. And I know Margaret's going to talk more when we go into coronavirus related items.
Joe,
Yeah.
or Leslie, this is Noel. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, Joe, and I'm sorry, I don't have all the agenda in front of me. When you say it began to drop off, we understand in the last 2 weeks of March. Give us some numbers if it's not there. When you say drop off, what percentage were you talking about?
Can you put that screen back up, the extra mile screen?
Well, honestly, if we go over to we have graphs on the COVID-19.
I'm back.
So that might be a little better to look at.
Okay.
I'll show you that.
Can we see that?
Or It's kind of jumping around, but that's okay. Let me just get it. So, and I don't know if you're seeing it.
No, I'm not. I'm just on the phone. I'm not seeing it, and I apologize to you.
I'll talk through it. That's okay. So the first week, it was really the end of March and early April. We saw even the extra mile was extremely slow. It was a big drop. But it has come back in the past as time has gone. As you can see, sorry. That yellow week it really dropped lower, and then it kind of come back up. So early March we were at 259 trips in the month. In the week, sorry. Second week of March it was 150. Third week 122, and then it started coming back up a little to 141 the last week of March, and then first week of April 137, and then just Monday and Tuesday was 36 days combined. So we're usually right now we're running somewhere between like 20 and 29 trips a day on it. So it's down about half of where it was, which is a lot better than most of our other services. If you look at like Dollar Ride was at 204 trips a week in early March, and first week of April, last whole week we had, it was 30 trips. So Dollar Ride's down like 85, 90%. Fixed routes are down like 80%. Extra miles down 50.
Joe, I'm sorry I can't see this, but I like the fact that you're reiterating these numbers. I appreciate that. A couple questions, Joe. When it's down, what you're doing is you're pulling buses out of service then, or they're just riding with fewer people on each bus?
So it depends on the service. On Dollar Ride, we have less buses. We have one bus running. On Extra Mile, we always have one bus, so we still have one. And on the fixed routes, so most of our fixed routes, except the 641 from Old Madison, have only one bus running on them. So for those, there's still one bus running because they're on a schedule, and we can't really reduce one bus much more. So, but for 641, which usually has 3 buses running, we've gone to a Saturday schedule on that, which is only 2 buses. So,
Joe,
that
I'm
dropped.
sorry, Joe, on that.
Yep.
Joe?
Yes.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise. I'm having some trouble hearing, but that's very good. My last question on this, Joe, is, has this affected staffing anyway? That is to say, the people that were normally assigned as drivers, if they're not working, are they still continue to be paid?
So there is not anyone not working because of our absentee rate. So we have lost a lot of people.
Joe, excuse me, this is Suzanne. I don't know if it's background noise. I can't hear you.
Yeah,
somebody's got a dog, and I think somebody's got some electronics. If you don't mind, if you're not planning to speak, just put your phone on mute. You can always unmute it in a heartbeat. Suzanne, is that any better? Joe?
Leslie, I'm with Suzanne. There is some sort of, I don't know what it is, noise in the background. So Joe comes in and he goes out.
Well, somebody's got a doggy. Who's got a doggy there?
So the host can mute everyone. So whoever the host of the meeting is,
I'm trying to find that. I'm in screen share. I'm not seeing everything.
Yeah, so it's going to be.
If he mutes everyone, he's not going to know when we want to say something. Sam.
Right. So while
How do we unmute? Before you do that, Joe, tell us exactly what we do to unmute if we want to talk.
Go to the top of your screen and you'll see a little.
I'm not on the screen. I'm coming in.
Go to your on your telephone.
On your phone,
It's *6, John.
*6, okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, so Joe, have you answered Noel's question? I guess you have.
All right. I put everyone on mute for the time being, but you can unmute yourselves. So I put up the slide of the routes. Oh, we were talking about employees. Unless Margaret's back on.
I'm back.
Okay. Do you want to talk about absences? Are you there?
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Sorry about that. The mute keep going off there, Joe. Anyway, so I reviewed my scheduling data versus the call out sheets and all of the data I have regarding drivers who are out and the reason that they're out. So I made these categories, whether it's a medical out because they had a medical procedure, whether they're calling out, whether it's based on doctor recommendation that they stay home, whether it's vacation or if it's a personal matter. So from the chart, you can see that we have a couple who are using the COVID emergency sick pay as reason for being out based on whether it's a medical condition or if it's doctor recommended. So that has, at this point in time, we still have a couple of people out. I would say from this point, maybe there's 4 people out because of COVID. The other 2 is either a personal matter or it's a medical procedure recovery time. I can tell you right now, it's very steady. The people who are here are dedicated to be here, and they're going to be here as long as we allow them to be here. As far as hours and scheduling, everyone who is scheduled for full-time are getting their full-time hours. Everyone who's scheduled for part-time are doing part-time hours. So no one has lost any hours whatsoever. I've been very creative with how we use their time, whether it's cleaning buses, whether it's helping with training, whether it's documenting details. So I've actually even have a driver training as a dispatcher for extra coverage when needed. So we are definitely utilizing the people who are here, and people are very grateful that they have a job. Of course, like everyone else, they're concerned about the COVID-19. They just want to know that we're doing everything in our power to keep them safe.
Margaret?
Yes.
On the, just out of curiosity, on the, I see the, for the last 2 weeks with the higher percentage of COVID sick out, are these just folks that are intentionally quarantining, self-quarantining, or do we have anybody that actually knows they have COVID?
No, we for the COVID time that you see there, they are either self-quarantining or doctor recommended.
Okay.
Yeah. Once the new Emergency Sick Leave Act went into effect on April 1st, we had a bunch of people
utilize it.
So, yeah, so the 6 people out doesn't sound like a lot, but it's like, it's about 30% of our workforce is out sick or on this COVID leave or on personal. So so we have enough people out that people not getting their hours is not an issue at all.
That is correct.
Margaret said she did have to change everybody's schedules, or a lot of people's schedules around. Especially when we met.
I didn't do too much changing. I mean, the only change is based on the 641 route being reduced.
Right.
So that's the only place where I made adjustments. Everyone else, based on the last run bid, are doing the schedule that they signed up.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm very creative with mixing things around so that way everything is covered and we have what we need to make sure we run efficiently.
Leslie, this is
Yes.
Noel. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've done this, but what kind of mitigation efforts on the bus drivers? Are they wearing masks? And I want to know how the buses are mitigating, and are people distancing? How are you handling that on the buses is my question.
Absolutely. So everyone has masks, whether it's their own that they brought in or the one that we're providing. Everyone has gloves. We are doing cleanings in the morning, in the afternoons. We have put up caution tape around the driver so passengers have to either board in the back or go through the driver, but without contact. Joe, there are some pictures that show that the first two seats are blocked off, so no one can sit that close to the driver. And for the Gilligs, we've roped off the front end. The only time it would be moved is if we had a wheelchair passenger.
The individuals, again, Noel, if I could ask, the individuals who tested positive, the drivers, I understand somewhere, did they have any contact with your staff in your office?
We do not have any drivers presently testing positive for the virus.
No, they're just, their doctors have advised them to not work because they're at high risk.
Okay,
And
thank
nobody
you.
has tested positive.
Very good answers. Thank you, everybody.
And do you want me to, ask Leslie, do you want me to just go into the other stuff? Wow, I mean, do we want to go to that item? Will we be skipping anything since we've already kind of started covering it? I'll go to the agenda for a second. I don't see Leslie. Oh, there she is.
It's under new business.
There you are. Do you want to do that first while we're talking about it, or do you want to do old
I
business?
think you have to accept Margaret's report and move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Margaret, anything else from you, darling?
Nothing. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
All right, motion to accept the report.
So move, Noel, so move.
All right, and somebody will second. And further
Everybody's
discussion.
unmuted now, so you can.
Okay, further discussion. Hearing none,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Margaret, thank you very much. Thank you for being so creative as well. Okay, on to old business. The item here that is the regional bus study. And I guess we're gonna go to Joe and or Sam on this one.
I'll let Sam start on it.
So sorry, I was still muted. Sorry about that. The steering committee, which is Joe, me, people at Conduct, have received the draft report, and we are looking it over. My attention has been focused on some other things, but that we will be wrapping up this first round of comments probably within the next week or two. Things have been put on hold regarding public involvement to talk about, we had planned some public meetings to talk about some service alternatives and service improvements and getting feedback from the public on them. Right now, it's not possible to hold in-person public meetings. And there is a concern that the transit-dependent population may be less likely to attend a virtual meeting like this because it takes access to technology, internet, and there's concerns that this is not would not be a good stand-in for that level of participation that we would want from the public. If this goes on for many months, I think we may have to reassess that. But right now, for at least this month, we're not planning on any public meetings to do that outreach. I don't know if this was reported to you, but I know at our last meeting that I attended, we talked about some interest in a parcel of land next to the old Saybrook transfer station as a location for a satellite facility for 9-ton transit. Our consultant team got back to us and they apologized and said, whoops, it's all wetlands and it's not buildable. So time and money was spent to fit a building and sort of get us all excited about a location which would be excellent because of its access to Route 9 and I-95, Also, the fact that it's owned by a town might make it easier to acquire that property as well. Our consultant team had never really did a full site selection study. What they did was they used one of my staff members, Dan Beret, who recently left for a job in Old Line, to do a screening of publicly owned parcels, and that's how we found that parcel that was owned by the town of Old Saybrook. DOT has some GIS staff who are looking for work. So Margot Burns, who is still at Rivercog, she is very capable in GIS. She's working with this GIS person at Condot to try to do some screening of publicly and privately owned parcels. The issue that we have is that there really aren't a lot of parcels. The parcels that are not really developed are usually the ones that are challenging. They have wetlands, they have ledge, they have issues. One good thing is that the Westbrook site from the Wendell studies still exists. It's still there. It's more land than what would be necessary for this facility. We're looking for something 3 to 4 acres, depending on what the configuration of the parcel and any impediments on it. You might need larger. If it's like a perfectly flat rectangular parcel, you might be able to get by with a little less. There's also concerns, obviously, if you can be on public water and public sewer, that would be the most ideal situation. So Margot is working with, I think his name is Tyler at Condot, on doing some initial screening again, so at least we have something in the report. Joe did present to Condot the need for take that further, because ultimately, if we want to pursue the satellite facility, we're going to need to procure some professional real estate assistance, because Joe will need to follow FTA procedures. We can identify through the screening process some privately owned parcels. We may actually, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at commercially and industrially zoned parcels that may already be developed, but could be redeveloped or could be subdivided potentially because they're not using the full parcel. We have to get creative here. But at some point, we would need some sort of real estate broker or a real estate professional to approach the property owners, because these may be parcels that are not on the market. We were looking to get some funding from DOT. The Wendell report had a real estate agent on there, and they were paid a fee for their work. The way that I understand from Joe that property acquisition works with the FTA, your typical a real estate agent fee is not part of the process. So you would have to pay a fee to a real estate agent for their work to identify, if we were to work to identify other possible parcels that could work for this. That's where we are with that component. We were concerned that we need to have the satellite facility have legs at the same time that any improvements in Middletown take place. This needs to be a package deal. This can't be, oh, we're going to do Middletown, and then, oh, at some point down the road, Estuary, you'll get something. I think this needs to be one project, and that's part of, I think, the negotiation of the transit districts with the DOT. Furthermore, service improvements and recommendations for service improvements from this plan are a little bit delayed because we can't go. It's difficult to go to the public right now, but we would obviously want a package of service improvements to be part of everything. With COVID-19, how that's affecting state budgets and the DOT, this of course is not on top on their priority list. but we need to keep on it and use this time to do our homework, because there's not a lot going on. Yeah, yesterday the State Bond Commission met, and to a surprise to a lot of people in Western Connecticut, promised money for rail coaches on the Danbury and Waterway branches was cut out of the Bond Commission agenda. We got funding for new rail coaches for Shoreline East, which I think is a very good thing, which means that the state is investing in our commuter railroad. But they are cutting back on some of that borrowing. And when my colleague at the Naugatuck Valley COG was pressing DOT, and legislators were pressing why did they cut the coaches for Waterbury branch, really the only answer they got was, we don't have the money. So I am worried about the state. And when I hear that Ninetown still hasn't gotten paid for Extra Mile, it just makes me worried. We are moving forward with a survey, and this would be put on the study website. Joe has put that up on the screen. We've had a conference call. We've done review. We've had comments on these survey questions. This is something which we can get out there to the public. I think although an in-person meeting is not possible, people's participation in the survey, I think, is more realistic. I think participation in a Zoom meeting, first of all, Zoom meetings, as you can see just from today's meeting, have their challenges. Let's see, what's the question? Why was the word? Joan, I don't understand your question. If you could retype it. Oh, why was the word today in there?
It just didn't make sense to me in the question number 1 that it says, do you use the Ninetown Transit services today? Why is the word today in there? Because the second question, it goes, if you do use the services, how often do you generally use them? So it didn't make sense to me reading the questions.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because if we do put the survey out there today, there may be a lot of people who were writing it today because they're self-isolating, they're quarantining themselves at their homes, so they're not writing it today. So I think that's very astute, and I think that is that the word today can be dropped. I think that. I don't know if that word was meant as specifically about that day or in general in the present that you are a writer.
But they do have options. I do not.
But I would suggest, if you wanted to know if they used it today, I would suggest putting a separate question. Did you use it today? And secondly, and then to have another question that says, do you use the services?
Yeah, and this is going to be interesting because we may actually, now I'm thinking about it, might want to just tweak this a little bit because we're not in normal times. This is not normal times. Ridership, as you saw, is way down, and we're hopeful that this will pass, and in a few months we can go back to somewhat normal operations. But I think we do need to just acknowledge to people, like right now they may not be riding, but in normal times they would be. So Joe, do you have anything to add?
Do you want to mention the labor part? During here before too is that the labor section was not fleshed out well.
Yeah, so we had a few weeks ago we had a teleconference with the member of the consultant team who was supposedly a labor expert, and is one of the reasons why we selected Nelson Nygaard. And as it turns out, we were not very impressed by the labor guidance we received. In their defense, it is a difficult. There's a couple of different scenarios on how this can play out in a labor perspective. Ninetown could you could have a future where you end up Ninetown organizing with a different union. You could have Ninetown organizing with the same union. You could have Middletown vote to de-unionize and there being no union in the future. Or you could potentially have a situation where you have two different operating units, one organized and one not. That will make things very complicated. The worst case scenario would be a scenario where the two units are represented by two separate unions. That would be probably the worst situation for Joe and for the board. So, and those are the scenarios those are really the only scenarios that you have, and we could have figured that out on our own. I think we were expecting a little bit more insight than what we got.
We did get permission from CONDOT to engage our labor attorney to better develop the various scenarios and the challenges that may lie ahead regarding, especially in relation to what the federal rules are that apply to us when it comes to organized labor.
Yeah, there's federal laws that govern transit companies and their relationship with organized labor that have to be followed. Yeah, I forgot about the discussion about the labor attorney, but it's obvious that there needs to be some legal advice here. That was not something that was originally scoped in the project. We don't have a labor attorney as part of the project team. There probably should have been, to be quite honest. We thought that the experience with labor negotiation, you don't have to be an attorney to know about transit labor issues. Joe, just from his experience working in the transit field, knows quite a bit. We were just hoping that our consultant team would be able to provide us stuff that we didn't know about already. Anything else that we should talk about, Joe?
I think you covered everything. I will add that I spoke to Dennis this week, and he said he was absolutely expecting to pay for site selection.
Great. That's excellent.
Yeah, he didn't know why they were arguing that with us.
Because at some point, we're going to do this GIS screening project. It will come up with an idea of a list of parcels, but ultimately we're going to need some money to pay a real estate professional to actually knock on doors and see what's feasible and what isn't. And since
unless they're planning on using eminent domain,
right?
We know that they're willing sellers, right?
The state and ETD are not going to use eminent domain.
Absolutely not. So we need to know they're willing sellers. The other thing is that in this report, this draft report, they were coming up with other possible future studies that would need to be done. And so John and I worked together on his list that he had shared last meeting. And we kind of came up with which of those items would require, a contract with somebody to complete them. And DOT had no issue with any of those. We came up with estimated costs, and DOT agreed to each of those. And they also agreed to having kind of like some money set aside for any studies we might identify, as we go forward. So understanding that we might not think of everything today, but once the boards start negotiating, DOT starts negotiating, it's very likely we might identify something else. We say we really need to hire somebody to advise us on this.
Joe,
yes.
is this information about funding and whatnot, this coming from Dennis?
On which part?
Where you're saying, when it comes down to getting the monies together to go ahead and do these studies, et cetera, this is Dennis speaking?
So this is just in the study. It's what the study is going to have in the end. It's going to identify additional studies or areas that consultants need to be hired to, you know, in the next steps. And so some of it was a group at DOT we were meeting with, which you met, Lisa, Maureen, and Alicia.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, not that that means that there's money for it yet, but, you know, if everyone's in agreement as the study gets done, it's very likely that they will fund it going forward because they had their chance to say, no, we don't believe that's a study worth funding. And there were stuff that they didn't agree with, but it was stuff that the Nelson Nygaard recommended, not anything that we recommended. So they agree with everything he said. The only one that they didn't was Nelson Nygaard said that a site selection needs to be done. And they asked me how much would a site selection cost. And so I pulled out our contract with Wendell and gave them the number. That it was, we spent $116,000 3 years ago. I said, figure 125. And that's the one that Conduct pushed back on, saying, well, we don't need, and again, this is the people that are our day-to-day contacts on the study. They are not people who, they're not involved in site facilities at DOT. They have a separate group that does that. Why that group hasn't, you know, I don't know why they didn't bring that group into discussion. They should have. We all know who that is. It's Lisa Tillum. No, that group. They didn't bring her in. And they're sitting here arguing with Sam and I over, you know, what should be done on a site selection. And they're saying, well, why don't you just throw RFP? And I said, because you're not allowed to under the federal rules, you're going to use federal money. And they didn't know that. Now, of course, Lisa Tillum knows that. The people in DOT didn't know that. They just weren't involving those people. And they're sitting here arguing with us that, no, you don't need to spend that money on that. So, well, yes, you do.
So how do you get to this site selection group?
It got left, well, because I just told Dennis that they're arguing with me over site selection. And are we really gonna kill this thing over a site selection? He said, of course we're doing a site selection. I completely expected that we'll have to do a site selection. So don't worry about it. We're gonna do a site selection. So.
And the hope, my hope is that given the work that was done in the Wendell report and whatever work we can get done as part of this study, that maybe the price could come down. By doing, yeah.
I mean, the intention though really is that I think the Westbrook site is still probably our number one site. I don't really see there any reason why it's not. The problem there, and Noel might know more, is, you know, when we last, you know, where we left it was we had new owners. I know Noel talked to them, and they were open to the idea of us, but we still don't know if they're willing to sell to us. And we haven't done everything on the property that needs to be done to make sure it's a clean property. It probably is, but it's the last viable site left from our Wendell site selection. So that's the problem, is that if Westbrook falls through, there is nothing else. There is no alternative. Then we need this site selection. If the Westbrook site works, they're willing to sell to us, site's clean, everything can be done on it that we need to do, then there's probably no need. We're probably good to go. So it's just that we don't like going into this with all one, you know, only one site left from our original study. Yeah, and we're still probably at least a year, 2 years, at least a year probably from buying the property. You know, so
Joe,
I want to make sure we have that. Everyone's anticipating there's a good possibility we may have to do a site selection. But if we don't have to, we don't have to. We buy Westbrook, great.
So Joe, there's two studies here. There's the first is, if everyone's agreeable, doing the due diligence on the Westbrook site to see if that's feasible and if it's still a valid site.
Well, first making sure that they're even still willing to sell to us.
Well, yes.
And Noel, I don't know, Noel, if you've had much, I mean, I don't know how much you've spoken with the owners there. And I know again, when I know when it first started, it was kind of complicated because there was an owner and then there was a management company and you know, I mean,
Conversation we had. Can you hear me, Joe?
yes.
Yeah, the answer to your question has been several months since we've talked with the owner and the management site, which is from New Jersey. The last conversations, they were very, very interested. That's maybe 3 months ago.
Great. Well, because I still think that's a great site. Oh, I mean, and I know the Deep River site got sold. So, and that, like I said, that's just my concern, though, is that I don't want to not plan any money for that and go into this with only one site.
But Noel,
That could happen in the next year.
Noel, do you have
Go
a sense
ahead.
did anybody ask them how much they're looking for? I mean, is it affordable? Do we know that?
We never got to that level of detail. Do I think it's affordable? Yes, I think that company is very interested because they're having difficulties with them all there, having stores fill up. But I happen to think that's good property. I mean, as you all know, it's an excellent location. But in terms of price, no. But I think it would be very competitive at this point in time.
Good. Okay.
And the other thing too is they have other parcels that are smaller. So you know, we identified that parcel that was the largest of the available parcels. There might be another parcel there, and there are. I mean, there might be another one that fits this new size building across the street. You know, the north side of Flat Rock was a little smaller. So you know, even so, there might be other options too, right there. It's not
Okay.
so. I think it's still a very viable site.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
Sam, have you got anything else we should know about?
I just want to say I do like Joe's approach, and if Westbrook is viable, then maybe we don't need to pursue another site selection. If it's not viable, it's too expensive. We find that there's contamination, and that's not something we want to deal with. Then we need to be able to have something lined up to be able to figure out where we're going to go next. And that is and obviously this is something that we do not want the owners of the Westbrook site to know that we have no backup. I think that's a very
No, very bad for your negotiating.
Joe,
So-
could I ask a question?
Sure.
When we met the last time, we talked about putting together a list of priorities for us that included such things as requiring DOT to act early on in the acquisition of property for a facility for us, as opposed to waiting until we make all these other commitments and then find out they're not going to do it. Have you had a chance to think about those things and share any of that with, or, you know, produce a priority listing or tease out DOT about some of these issues?
The only thing I need is, John, if you could send me your list. Do you remember after we met last, we were revising it?
John's list.
Yeah.
Okay.
John
Well,
had one list.
apropos of this discussion of land acquisition, I just want to make sure that the people, the stakeholders involved understand that the board, our board, will require some early action on land acquisition before we get far down the road on any kind of merger or integration.
I think, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've made that pretty clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Was it-
Sam, one of the first things Sam said was that absolutely our satellite or shoreline facility was a key player in moving forward. Did I quote you correctly?
Yeah, well, I think just from a negotiation standpoint, the worst case scenario is they move forward with Middletown. They design Middletown for maintenance, but not for storage of the entire fleet. Then at some later point, they say, "Oh yeah, estuary, you'll get your thing," and then they.
That's my big fear. That is a big fear. That is my big fear.
is that they,
So-
and so what happens is they will say, oh, we'll just do everything in Middletown, but they would have underbuilt Middletown.
Exactly.
And so you end up with a facility in Middletown that's too small and no satellite facility along the shoreline. So that's the worst case.
All right, so you're gonna
Well,
make sure priority-wise that does not happen.
Well, again, and if we're all agreeable on that Westbrook site that was identified in the window, or another, site in that on Flat Rock Place that they own, that will accommodate this facility.
Well, is it premature for us to make a request or a formal statement?
I mean, it's what was identified. It's a preferred site from our Wendell study. So we've already decided that was a preferred site for facility. So as long
Yes,
as
but at
change
this
on
point in
that-
time, can we go back to Sam and make this a formal component of the study, or no?
I don't see why we couldn't say that that's kind of, because if we have a site already ready, it'll be a whole lot easier to say, buy that site before we do anything, than if we don't have a site ready.
All right, so I guess what I'm saying
On the
is
study.
it premature for us? Is it premature for us to make a board request, make a motion to ask the study committee, or Sam for the COG, to go ahead and authorize the study committee to continue to pursue specifically the Westbrook site? Let's get all the parameters. Let's see if we can negotiate it.
And how difficult would it be for Noel? This would be, I guess, Noel, for do some outreach to the new owners and just see, just make sure that this is still viable with them. Because what I would suggest is if this is still viable and the new owners are still are open to the idea, this is very preliminary, of course. We could then identify in the transit study, this is the preferred site. Whatever results of our screening exercise that we're doing now, we will include that as well as potential backup list that would need a further site selection study to be able to vet. But yeah, we have a site. And we went through a valid site selection process.
And then we can asking price.
Right.
And build that into. I think that's our best approach.
This is Noel.
Spelled out.
This is Noel. If you want, I'm more than willing to reach out to them and see if it's still available. I don't think I would want to get into the cost and so on. My guess is they'd be very receptive, but if you're directing me to do that, I'd be very happy to do it. I certainly would want Joe to be a part of that conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. And Sam, we don't have anybody on the study team to talk about, we don't have a broker or anything to even talk about price.
No, there's no real estate. The sub who does the facilities, they design facilities. They don't do real estate transactions.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is all available. I don't know.
The good thing is that HDR did review the Wendell study, and they did find a mistake in it. There was a mistake in the square footage of the building, but we wouldn't be building that building anyway. So. But they validated that at least the site selection portion of the delineation.
Okay, so how do we?
Joe, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think on the list that you and I went through, and then you used for your estimates and everything, that we ought to add this condition on that list. I mean, there are other things we're going to do, but at least on the for the negotiations, I'll just add that on the list and send you a copy of it for your
and
records.
The items you and I discussed are in this draft.
That's what I know.
And so
that's why I didn't say anything when you talked about those items, but the item that Leslie just brought up, we ought to make sure that's memorialized in a number of places. Is all I'm saying.
I think I think it's definitely the best way to ensure that we get a short is to be already clear on the site and build it right into the study. So the cost is
right
built in there. If we go by their asking costs, we at least have that built in there.
All right.
Can't even do much negotiating, honestly, the way it works. So with the federal money involved. So
So we can move forward. Let's move forward and
Or a
pursue
lot quicker
Westbrook.
if we're all in agreement on a site. I think.
Right. So do we need a
So let me-
motion? I'm asking.
Why don't we make a motion just to
To ask us to
it's
include.
a sense of the board.
Fine. Language for the motion, please. Sam, you got a suggestion?
I would say that Estuary Transit District endorses the Westbrook site identified in the Wendell report as its preferred site for the estuary for the shoreline transit facility, and that encourages DOT to pursue acquisition.
Well, I think we need to go one step further, Sam, and that is the board is saying that we need to secure the identification of the site and maybe even the funding of the site before we're going to proceed with the rest of the negotiations.
Oh, okay. One thing I was thinking additional is that, you know, if the Westbrook site is not viable, that requesting funding from DOT for to fund a site selection process.
And all right, but you're also suggesting in your motion that the DOT pursue viability as opposed to an interim step where we make sure that, you know, we speak with these people.
No, we have to do our homework. But DOT has made it clear that they want to own it, that they want to buy it.
Oh yes, but I thought we needed an interim step, which was Noel and or whomever you gets hold of the Flat Rock people and determines for a fact whether or not
That's
this
just our due diligence.
Excuse me, I have two questions for everyone. First one actually comes from Joan. I don't know if everyone saw the chat question that Joan just put up, asking when could we expect to receive the prioritized list we discussed at the March 13th meeting?
So John's going to send me his list, and then I'm combining it with Susan's list. I'll get it done.
Great. My question really comes back to the process that you guys we're discussing right now. For me, from my perspective anyway, I don't see how we can get too far into making motions and suggesting that we've got a site chosen when at this point we're speculating that it's available. We're speculating that we've got funding. I think we need to confirm that it's there and confirm that they're willing to hold on to it for a couple of years while we secure all this.
Right. Right. So viability, an interim step of us pursuing this directly, never mind DOT.
Yeah.
And making sure that the Flat Rock people want to work with us and that it's affordable, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely. Right. So could we rephrase the language on this? So we have some, I would like a formal something in these minutes.
So the motion could be to Rivercog that Estuary Transit District endorses, or you've already adopted the Wendell site. It's already adopted. You already adopted it. But I think really you're just reminding us that the ETD has selected a site. We would and you're requesting that site be shown as in the final report. The question is, who is this motion for? Is it for? It's really whatever you want from the COG, you'll get it. Joe sits on our board. It's the purpose is what purpose does it serve for DOT? What message do we want to send to the department? And I think the message we want to send to them is the bigger message that we want you. If you're going to take action about Middletown, you're taking action down here too. That these projects are linked. You can't make them two separate projects.
Then perhaps what going back to Angus's comment, which I thought where you were headed, Angus, was that a motion may be premature, is to make it much more general that it is the expectation of the Board of Estuary Transit District that action on a Middletown and shoreline facility will occur simultaneously.
It's gotten touched twice.
But
I
that
just
sounds-
unmuted it.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Leslie?
Yes, sir.
Leslie? Can you
Yes.
hear me? This is Peter.
Yes, Peter, we can hear you.
Okay, I guess I'm going to be the sand in the gears, but I'm a little concerned that we seem to be running at a considerable speed towards this. If we were a company, for example, we would not have COG involved. We would look into it, particularly with the access of Knoll, somebody, maybe one or two other people, and Knoll can explore it. But I don't think we should be precipitous at this point, because we really don't know in true numbers where we're going. So that's the first time I've been able to say anything in here, so I'll bow out. Bye-bye.
No, don't leave. Don't leave.
No, but I would like to echo that, just because any motion we make will be public to the property owners.
Well, if I can, that's why I'm suggesting a more generic sense of the board, that it is the expectation of the Board of Estuary that action on a Middletown and shoreline facility will occur simultaneously.
Good. And maybe we mention and
that's.
I would not mention Westbrook at this
no,
point.
but maybe just an expedited purchase of property. Something that makes it clear that we expect.
I think that motion says it exactly what it needs to be. We're not going to move on Middletown until we move on.
At least I have the sense of the board that we're okay with the findings of the Wendell study. Then, I can push them towards that site. That that's what we want. If it's viable, let's study that site further, because that will be the quickest to buy. And if that's the site we go for, I don't think we're talking years. I think we're talking 1 year and a half.
But I think the other point that we've been making, Joe, is that we want to make sure that there is confirming action on the site before we enter into detailed negotiations on a lot of other items.
Right.
Or it could be parallel, but we're not going to go down the road. We don't want to go down the road where we're making operating trade-offs, and the state does not feel a commitment that they need to secure the site before we finish that side of the negotiations.
Right. No, and I think the motion makes that clear. But like I said, if I know that we're all okay with the moving forward towards that Westbrook site, then I know specifically which direction to push them in. So we get to that goal of having that site, this one moving at the same speed as Middletown.
Perhaps what we could do is amend that resolution to say that not only the position of the Board of the Estuary is that action on a Middletown and shoreline facility will occur simultaneously, and that such action will occur at the beginning of the process of negotiation, or something to that effect.
I like what Susan just said.
I like that too. I'm gonna have to get off in a couple minutes because of my next meeting at 11. So, but I do like that.
Yeah, and so.
Okay, then I guess I'm still a tiny bit confused here, because are we going to the DOT with this statement, or are we actually taking a step and having some kind of preliminary conversation with Westbrook? I just don't want to wait and find out in 6 months or a year that they sold it out from under us because they had no idea we were interested. Where is that component?
We're doing
The
both.
answer is both. Is yes.
We're going to do both. So Noel and I will. Noel, if you could arrange a discussion with the owners, you and I can talk to them.
It'll be done next week. If that's the sense of your motion, I think Joe and I can get on a call and we'll follow up on that. If that's the sense of what you want us to do.
And then that gives me direction and Sam direction on where to push DOT. you know, because I get the Middletown is clear where we need to purchase the property. It's across the street. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So we want to make sure that because if we have a site identified, it's just going to move. It's going to make sure this down here moves a lot quicker.
All right, so do we have a motion on the table or not? We have a motion?
Leslie,
Yes.
Leslie, one
Yes.
thought is that it's not uncommon to ask for an option once you have indicated your interest to the other party, and an indication of good faith would be to ask for a 6 month or 9 month option on it and see if that
you
would
mean
work.
on the land? Yeah, absolutely. I think options and first right of refusals would be things that would be discussed within the negotiations. I think that's understood in my real estate mind here. But right now, I mean, do we have a motion on the
But
table?
what
that
I like Susan's because it deals both with the property perspective and with a perspective that DOT, we want DOT to agree with.
Okay, so do we read that back? Suzanne, do you have that written down somewhere?
Do you want me to reread it?
Well, you or Suzanne, whomever, yeah.
I have it. One quick question. Is this a resolution or a motion?
I think it's the motion.
I think it's a motion.
Okay. What I have here, subject to others' comments, is that it is the position of the board of the Estuary Transit District that action on a Middletown and shoreline facility will occur simultaneously, and that such action will occur at the outset of negotiations on a potential integration of Middletown and Estuary Transit Districts.
Okay. Suzanne H., have you got that? Suzanne Halchowski still here?
I have a question.
Wait 1 second. I just want to make sure that the motion is recorded.
You did. I don't know which number she's calling from.
I don't know either. Suzanne, in any case, go ahead, Joan, your question?
My question is, in the motion itself, should we refer to Ninetown Transit rather than the Estuary Transit District?
You know, contractually, we are Estuary Transit District, DBA Ninetown Transit.
Say that again?
Contractually, with the DOT and everybody else, we are the Estuary Transit District. What's that?
Okay, there, I'll tell him. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So she got the motion.
Leslie?
Is there, yes,
Leslie? Leslie,
Yeah.
I just want you to know, I did call Suzanne. She doesn't count on you, but she has the motion. She has it. She just doesn't know how to get back in touch with you, but I just called her. She's listening to everything. She has the motion.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, is there a second to the motion? Or who made the motion? Suzanne. Susan made the motion, John seconded. Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Okay, you've all been given your jobs to do. Very good. I'm going to assume this ends the regional bus study portion of our agenda. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Another item under old business, I believe, that isn't on the agenda is I'm personally looking for an update, Joe, that you may have on the town of Hadam's position. At our last meeting, we decided that we would invite them to join us and that we were encouraging them to have a town meeting. Have we heard anything at all from Hadam?
And that was right before everything shut down, so.
No? That would be no?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Everything's been shut down since our last meeting, so.
Okay. Fine, just curious. Is there any other old business that I'm not seeing on the agenda? No? Okay, then let's move to new business, please. Fiscal year 21 budget update.
Leslie, before you go, I've got another meeting I've got to get to. Goodbye, all. Stay well. Stay safe.
You can't leave.
Bye.
Just
Bye, Mick.
just button away. Bye now.
Okay, fine. Bye. Fiscal year 21
I
budget.
just,
Who's got this?
I don't know, Joe, you want to say, or you want me to step
Yeah,
in?
you can go ahead.
In the finance committee before this meeting, we have then next week, Joe and I will make a schedule for the meeting for the finance committee to go over the budget, and we should pass the budget by next meeting. We will bring to the board to vote on it. So that's where we are.
So we're looking at a special meeting in late May, just for the purposes of advertising the budget, so that at our regular June meeting, we can adopt the budget.
Okay. All right, any other questions or conversation on that? Nope, moving along then, discussion with possible action of the COVID-19 impact. Again, back to Joe, I guess. Do we need action of some sort?
No, I don't think so. I plan on just in case somebody wanted, they'd end up making any.
Does anyone have any questions about this?
So we discussed some, and I think last time some of the things we were doing, of course, it's been evolving, and the recommendations we're getting keep changing. We've had phone calls every other day with DOT, so we've been very involved with them. We said last time, we're cleaning, disinfecting every day, and our office too. But we closed the office to the public. I think that was just after our last meeting. And Helena and Lisa are both working from home. We're just trying to only have in the office who needs to be here, just reduce the numbers in the office. One of the challenges has been keeping a stock of PPE just like everywhere else, and cleaning items. And
Do you have enough? Do you have enough PPE
we do right
stuff?
now. I think Lisa spends probably most of her day tracking down stuff. I mean, it's like we hear, oh, this supplier had stuff, so she runs over there, and then you wait for them to respond, and it kind of changes what's short. You know, right? It had been masks. We just got a big mask order in yesterday, so we expect to have a lot of masks coming. We had some we got from the state. They actually 3 weeks ago told us, oh, we got everyone masks. Come to Hartford and pick them up. And Margaret goes up there, and they gave 10 masks.
Oh.
Surgical masks, you know, one day use masks. So, so masks were for a while, but we did find they're actually a bus vendor that is doing masks. So we're able to get a big order there. We actually ordered them for other transit districts too, because that's kind of how we've been working all together. So if somebody finds something, we order it, and then we tell it. We try and share where we can.
Well, if I could sew, I would make masks for you guys, but I can't even stitch up a crotch, so I'm no good to you.
But hand sanitizer has been hard. We just yesterday found somebody who has selling drums of them. So we got a drum coming, but it just changes all the time. It's been hard to find, and so it's been challenging. I went over this somewhat in earlier meeting, but we have had a loss of fare revenue. PHP has closed, which is we get like $50,000 a year from them to transport their clients, so we're losing that revenue. It's like what, $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
Losing there.
Yeah.
And then a number of most of the advertising clients are unable to pay right now. And so one of the things we discussed in the finance committee meeting was our advertising contractor had asked us about deferring payment. And my thought was we just say, give our half as, credit to our clients, because they're all local customers. I mean, they're all local businesses. give them our half of the share back. So it helps them. Right now, we know most of them have no revenue coming in. So, help them out with some advertising on behalf of Estuary Transit District. So, and the Finance Committee was agreeable to that. And unless anybody opposes us, well, I'll direct our advertising contractor to do.
Joe,
Yes.
Leslie, I have a question.
Yes,
Can I
go.
ask it?
Certainly.
And you may have discussed this in your finance meeting, so if it's repetitive, let me know. But Joe, if we were to give half back, what's the financial implications of that?
It's finance guess is it's on average about $2,500 a month. So I'll kind of get into it. That goes back to the CARES Act. So we're just going to put it in as lost revenue due to the CARES Act. They're probably going to pay anyway. A number of them are trying to cancel their contracts. Hopefully, it actually will help them keep the contract and then be able to pay us when this is all go back to when this is all over. So,
But Joe, it does not have a major impact on our budget for this year. Am I correct?
Right. It's an insignificant amount. Again, it will be eligible to be for 100% federal funding anyway.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so, any other questions about COVID?
The last thing we're doing is right now we're looking at driver barriers. And so there's a sample of one that DOT designed for smaller buses. 10 times harder. And kind of we're revisiting the whole idea of driver barriers on the whole fleet. So that's one of the things we're working on now. We're looking at possibly installing.
Joe, I'm having trouble hearing you.
It's not Joe. It's somebody else has a lot going on.
This is Suzanne. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, in and out. We can hear you.
I can't hear a word Joe is saying.
Okay.
All right. Somebody either has a dog or a lot of activity on their phone. Just mute if you're not speaking, please. Okay, Joe, could you repeat the last part about the driver barriers?
Yeah. So you see on your screen a picture of a driver barrier. This is one that DOT designed with DATCO. So we're looking at different possible driver barriers. And this is in a smaller bus. These are really inexpensive. They're the ones that the drivers are most exposed to people because they don't have a rear door like the larger buses. And then we're also looking at longer term options for the larger buses having barriers. There are a lot of barriers available for the large buses, but they're really designed for protecting the drivers from assault. Of course, they'll also protect them from aerosols as well. In the past, we haven't done them because we don't have driver assault. It's not an issue. Most drivers wouldn't want to be enclosed in an area. But nobody didn't think of them in terms of for a pandemic. So that's kind of the next thing we're looking at is being able to have a shield there for the drivers.
And what's the timing on looking at it and implementing it?
We are getting another price. So Malice is going to get me a price on what it would cost for them to do it, because it's really nothing that complicated about it. Just so I have at least another price to know it's reasonable. And we should be able to purchase in the next week or so.
All right, now help me out here, but can a driver actually exit through that little teeny space there?
So if you look closely, it's hinged and there's a little latch right by the steering wheel. There's a latch right there.
Maybe, I don't see it.
And so the whole thing's hinged.
Oh, okay.
They can unlatch it and get out. And the small buses, they also have their own door.
Yes, I know, but for an emergency standpoint.
In case they need to move into the.
Either way, they shouldn't be able to move either way.
Right, they can open it up and.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Good. Well, from my
standpoint. Yeah, that's the stuff we
standpoint,
have to figure out is, how best to.
Well, I would love to make this a priority. If you're going to do it, let's get it done.
They are, yeah, there's some in service. They're testing them out. And like I said, I have Mal's getting the price for us right now. And actually, and a third price from a glass company. So I will know really soon, you know, which way we're going to go, and we can start purchasing.
Okay, good. Any other questions or concerns about COVID?
And then, you know, we went over the route data, how ridership has really
Right.
dropped. Specifically,
Right.
641's been the worst. I mean, that ridership is just totally tanked. And
Nobody's going to work.
but what's been interesting is the New London route has become like our busiest route now. We still have a good number in that route. I don't know why.
Huh.
And we spoke about extra mile and absences. And that's it on
Bill, I must say it's very impressive to see the large bus come down Lime Street.
Well, yeah. So because the rear door boarding we can do on that bus and the amount of separation we can do, I'll go back to this picture. Because New London's become busier, we've been putting that bus on there that's going to give the driver more separation, but to give the customers more space to distance too. So,
Perfect.
you know, yeah. So even though we certainly don't need that size bus for the passenger volumes right now, we kind of need it to give people space and give the driver space.
Good. Any other questions? All right, so let's move along in our new business. We have a marketing update. It's sort of me, as you well know. We've discussed the service reductions, but what we haven't discussed is through Facebook and through notifications, Joe has been letting everyone know diligently about the changes in service and reduced service hours to compensate for COVID. And I think you've been doing a great job with the press releases, Joe.
Thank you. And
I think
saw the story on, if everyone saw the story in the Harbor News.
Harbor News, yeah.
Good.
They did.
So I think you did. You're doing a good job. Good job.
And also mentioned before, and I'll show you here that these the things we've been sending out about it have had the most opens we've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, we had our second one had a 40% open rate. 564 people opened it. You know,
yeah, well, they're home looking at the computers a lot more.
Yep.
Are and we changed.
Charlie, did you have a question?
No, I just, well, yeah, what does open and open mean? Is that just each trip?
No, people
so
opening
this is, our newsletter, the email newsletter we send out. So it's how many unique users open emails we sent out.
As opposed to just throwing them in the trash.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Or going into a spam filter or something. So, I mean, we never see a rate like 40% of our list opening email. And so people are paying attention to what we're sending out. We had a good amount on Facebook too, people responding. And as I said earlier, with our AVL app, we also send alerts through that. So when people go in, they get a big red bar across the top. It says there's a new, a new alert, and so we've been sending it out through there too, in addition to updating that to make sure it's the data and it's always current. And as you know, we were planning a campaign on Route 81, but obviously all of that's being delayed.
On hold.
Yeah, we're not trying to increase ridership right now. We only want essential trips on the bus to keep everyone safe.
All right, are we making any changes to our events, magazines, ads? I know they're pretty much standard. They just sit there, but do we want to have any, we're all in this together kind of stuff? I don't know.
Problem is the lead time on those. Is it going to be
that's true.
By the time that they...
That's true. I forgot about that.
We just don't know how long this goes. So, that's why I don't see those much, because the lead time is just so...
All right. Well, they're quarterly magazines, and they have a horrible lead time. Okay, sorry. I take that back.
Let's pick up on that, Leslie. Joe, have you met with any of the reporters or like, well, if our business is suddenly going, we're doing a lot of things within London. Have you talked to the day about, what's happening and can tout some of the things you're doing?
No, it's really just been the Harbor News.
Okay, I'm just trying to say that, we've gone through a lot of things you've done in the last 2 hours, and it's impressive. And I just think it would be, it's the basis of a good news story, I would think.
Yeah, possibly. The Harbor News did a really good write-up. They covered a lot of stuff that we've talked about. And so I don't know if the day.
Well, I used the day just as an example, but I mean, can we take advantage of what you're doing to get the message out? I guess is what I'm really saying.
Yeah, we could try, especially if you know somebody at the day now. That's the same people are still there. Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to contact today?
Yeah, you could try and see if they'd be interested.
I mean, the person I'll contact is Lisa McGinley and Morgan McGinley. He was the editor of the day, and they're on our board at the transit district at the at the Estuary Transit District.
Roger Torrey
Peterson. So yeah. I'll make that call this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, they could even do it as like they could talk about seat and us, kind of what are transit agencies doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Good
Right.
point, John. Thank you.
So they can make it really
in the upcoming efforts on marketing, I'm sorry.
And mentioned the website report. You can see, again in real time, the drop off in our web hits due to this. Where is this? Are you seeing April?
Yeah.
Okay. So
we're seeing the first 2 weeks of April.
61% decrease in web sessions. So
that's because nobody's riding, so they're not caring, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was saying, you're just kind of seeing, there really how many less people are.
Yeah. Well, they're staying home. I drove past the commuter lot the other day because I actually went out for the first time in 2 weeks, and there were 3 cars in the Chester lot. Nobody's working. 3 cars. You could have learned to drive in there. Okay, can we move along? Yes. On the marketing report. Upcoming events. Yes, everything's on hold because we don't have any campaigns. However, one change that will be coming, and Joe will be marketing this, the town of Chester will be starting a major construction project next Monday, and it will possibly affect the route that the Chester bus will be taking. So Joe will be notified by the town within plenty of time, because it'll be at least 2, possibly 3 weeks before any shutdown of Main Street occurs, so that he will have time to inform everybody about route changes. Right, Joe? You got my email from Lauren.
Yes, I did. And that's where we'll update our AVL app. And part of the nice thing about having that real-time information is we can send it right out to people's phones and change it so that they can see, when they go look to see, their Main Street bus stop, they'll see that it's not there anymore. And they'll have a little
right.
stop saying.
And even if it's not there, it's going to be temporary, because they're making every effort to keep the road open at least one way at all times. But the construction will be a couple of months. Helena, you're on your side there. Look inside, there you go. So anyway, so stay tuned for that, especially if you come to Chester, but I don't think you will come to Chester because nothing's open. And the other thing, well, it's not marketing really. So I'm done with marketing unless there's questions. None? Okay, hearing none. We'll go to executive session. Do we have any reason? No. Okay. What's not on the agenda is board comments and chair comments. I have a chair comment. What a surprise. 2 weeks ago, I left a very, very pleasant email for Dennis Zielinski saying, hello, Dennis, hope you're well, blah, blah. And where's our extra mile money, since you made such a big deal about promising it, and never heard back. That was an email. As you all know, it takes only a few minutes to write an email. I got nothing from Dennis. This week, I left a message on his cell phone and said, again, very pleasantly, Dennis, I'd really like to know, we have a meeting on Friday, and I'd really like to know, since you promised, and since this was a contingency of moving forward with any kind of merger or consolidation, where exactly is the extra mile money? You're not going to be surprised, people, to find out I got no response from Dennis. Not a call back, not nothing. Joe, if he's contacting you instead of me, okay, I'd like to know about it. But I have to tell you, to me, it puts a very bad taste in my mouth for a guy to come and promise the moon and not even deliver a teeny tiny star.
Here, here. Leslie, I've got a couple of comments as a board member.
Go for it.
The first one is Joe and Helena, the graphics and everything that you all have prepared for this meeting were really helpful. And Margaret too, so thank you. And secondly, is there anything that the board can do to really reach out and thank all of our staff for all of the extraordinary work that you are all doing? Joe, you and Helena and Margaret probably know that because we communicate with you more regularly, but there's a lot of other staff there that would be nice and important to let them know that the board appreciates what they're doing in a rather...
Joe, I have an idea. If you would send, I'll first say it for me and then other people can tie on to it. If you'll send me the names and email addresses of all the staff, whoever you select, I'll end up writing a personal email to each person.
I don't know if they all have email. Beyond
what?
A letter might be better.
Okay, whatever you think is better. But if you get me the addresses, do you want me to send it to Word?
Yeah, send it here and we can, and then we'll mail it.
All right. But if you'll send me the list of their names and their precise names,
yeah,
I'll just make sure I don't make a mistake.
What if we do one letter from the whole board to all the
staff?
staff?
Passed around electronically.
Yeah. That we send to all the staff.
Well, the reason I was using the approach, I see the people several times each month when I'm writing checks, and I just felt like it was a little bit more personal. But I think also doing what you're suggesting is a good idea, Susan.
Okay.
Joe, when you say staff, does that include the drivers?
Yeah. I assume that's what John's talking about, right, John?
Everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones
John,
at the risk here.
John, I think it's a fabulous idea, but again, what Susan is saying, I think it would be unfortunate if the board or if the staff felt that the only one that really appreciated them was you. So I would love to see this come from the board.
Okay.
We can all, great idea, and you can get credit for it. We'll put you a little note at the bottom. P.S. This was John's idea, but it should come from the whole.
You don't have to do that.
Okay.
Does that mean you're volunteering to write it?
Thank you, John.
He's the writer of the group.
Oh.
The English teacher. No offense, John, but she's an English teacher.
Yeah,
no, I think Leslie is the right person to write it.
If we need something on
I bet
chart
you
paper,
do.
we know who to go to.
Yeah, go ahead, John. Give it a shot.
I said, if we need something done on chart paper, we know who to go to. For writing a letter, it's
John, make John do it. I like John's idea. Is there any other board business?
Wait a minute. Which idea are we implementing now?
You're writing a letter, giving it to Joe, and then
one letter from the board.
Right.
Okay.
You're writing. You're
And
right.
Joe,
Andy,
I expect this to be heavily edited.
in which case it will come back to me, won't it?
Yeah, if you want to send it, and then
Send it to me.
And then we could do like a mail merge and put everybody's name on it.
Send it to me and I'll edit and then we'll get it back to Joe, blah, blah, blah. It'll,
Okay,
fine. Yeah.
We'll do
You
that.
start, luck. Okay, on any other board
Joe,
member comments?
Leslie, this is
Yes.
Noel. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So we'll follow up then, Joe. I will be contacting you probably next Monday or Tuesday, set up a meeting. But Joe, before I get off the phone, is there a time and a day that you prefer that we have these discussions? If so, send me an email or whatever. I want to get on this right away.
I will do that. Yeah, I'll send you an email with my availability.
Good. Fair enough. Good.
Leslie?
Madam Chairman,
Leslie?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Peter?
Yes, sir.
I was just looking up Wendell, and this Flat Rock place in Westbrook was one of the 3 sites that they had some good recommendations on. If anyone wants to look it up in their Wendell, it's number 12.
Okay, thank you. Right, I have that giant thing. You're right, it is
Right,
in
well,
there.
And in the end, it was our preferred site. So even towards the back, there's more on it. The rendering they did was for that site. I mean,
Right, but keeping in mind that we're opening our minds to the fact that if that particular site isn't the best one, if they've got another one, we'll entertain that as well. But it's starting discussion with them.
I know they do, because remember we looked at several sites there on Flat Rock Place that they owned, but it was the only one that was large enough. So we know there's others there too.
Yeah, let's see what they have to say. We'll just keep that door wide open.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you, Peter, for that. Any other comments? Any other discussion before we say goodbye? Thank you all very much. Joan, if you have an opportunity to get hold of me, I would like to speak with you personally after the meeting. And I think that's it for the agenda. Like my hat? Like my shirt? Like my shirt? I'm ready to go. I would like to get out of my house, but I will tell you that I've gotten a little bit better at the piano. I've been practicing my violin. I have an absolutely gorgeous magnolia. I don't know if you can see it here. I don't know if I can get the magnolia in the picture. Look at this thing. How beautiful is that? And my husband's doing some cooking, so it's fine. And you know what? We're all going to be fine, and we're all going to be kinder to each other. And I thank you all for learning the technology so we could get together like this.
So we're adjourned.
We are adjourned, and it is 11:28. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Joe.
Bye all.
Have a good afternoon. Enjoy your day.
Everybody, bye.
Bye, everybody.